Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Leap Talks. I'm Annette Markfurt, and I'm the entrepreneurial animator at Fanshawe College on main campus in London, Ontario. But we're here to reach out to all of you as well. We have a few guests that I'd like to introduce to you. We have some folks out in the hall that are going to share some of their resources with you. I have Lindsay Wilson here from, of course I don't have my glasses, from Community Futures Oxford. Perfect. And Christine Smith, as well as Timothy Heaton from the Small Business Centre here in Woodstock, Ontario. And they have some great resources for you, for those of you who are interested in entrepreneurship and looking at perhaps starting your own business. So go and check them out afterwards. And we have some resources in the hall as well. Alex is here from Leap Junction, as well as Holly, who's going to be moderating our session today. And so please come outside. We're going to bring in some lunch for you later as well. And please come outside and check on all the great resources we have available for you. So I'm going to pass this over to Holly Painter. Holly's going to conduct Leap Talks with some of these great folks that have come out to tell their story.
All right. Just by way of introduction, I want to just start by giving you a little intro to Leap Junction, just for those who might not know exactly what we do. So our space is on the main campus in London, and we're a space for entrepreneurship. So any students who are in a program where they may be working for themselves at some point in time, doing freelance, consulting, or if they have another business idea, even if it's unrelated to their program, we are the people that we want those students to come see. We also work with grads, so if it's someone who has graduated from Fanshawe and then gets bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, they can come to our center and work with us as well. So a lot of what we do is just getting people information about entrepreneurship, helping them think about what their own idea is, helping them to figure out what they might need in terms of starting their own business, depending on where they're at. So I think actually that's the first thing that I want to ask, just by way of show of hands. How many of you have ever thought of starting your own business before? Wonderful. You're all in the right spot for today. How many people actually know someone else who is an entrepreneur or owns their own business? Okay, about half the room as well. So that's what we do at Leap Junction, is we want to foster that entrepreneurial spirit, and we do so in a bunch of different ways. So we have things like pitch competitions, networking events, we run workshops every week. So we do a lot, and these Leap Talks are new this year, and this is actually our first Leap Talk, so I'm really excited for this. And so we wanted to bridge the gap, not just for general entrepreneurship, but actually bring in some people who have graduated programs at Fanshawe. We have a few who have graduated Woodstock programs, people in the area that can use their stories and their expertise, hopefully to inspire you, hopefully to give you some information in terms of what their journeys looked like, and then see how it can relate to the programs that you're in and what you're going to be doing in the future. So with that said, we'll introduce our panelists. The very first question that I asked you via email was to introduce yourself and your business in less than 10 words. However, Nicole gave me a little grief about this on the drive to Woodstock. She said, I need at least 20 words. So I'll increase it just for this time. So can you introduce who you are and what it is that you do in less than 20 words?
I'll start. My name is Sky Elder, and I have a multi-service salon in London, Ontario called She Beauty Bar.
Okay, I'm Nicole Snowblin, owner and designer of Evelyn by Nicole Snowblin, which is a Canadian clothing line. I'm also the founder of the Abbey Fund, which is a soon-to-be not-for-profit that helps brighten the spirits of kids in the hospital. That was more than 20.
I'm pretty sure that was more than 20 words.
I tried.
You are off the panel.
My name is Shep Eiselstein, and I own Gunso Artisan Cheese, and we make specialty cheeses.
And my name is Badr Kasim, and I'm a founder of Lavadora, which is a laundry and dry cleaning service where we pick up, clean, and drop off laundry for people. And we run it through our website and phone center.
Fantastic. Can we give them a round of applause just for being here today? Okay. I'm gonna start by potentially embarrassing them a little bit just by reading a little bit more extensive bio, so you get a sense of who these people are. So we'll start with Sky at the end there. Sky Elder, owner of She Beauty Bar, a place you can relax and receive all of your beauty needs in one location. So Sky offers many different forms of therapy, which I love that. I love that term. From custom hair coloring, cutting, styling, extensions, makeup, facial waxing, lash extensions, microblading, all sorts of things that I know nothing about. Sky has 15 years experience in this field, and what I love that you said was that your passion for this industry only runs deeper with every passing year, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. And you said it means the world to you to spread joy and have the chance to offer women a boost in self-esteem. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the story and how you got into that. So we also have, by way, you did go over your 20 words, but
I tried.
I know. Nicole Snobelin is passionate about fashion and is the owner of the Canadian-made clothing line Evelyn by Nicole Snobelin. She's also the founder of the not-for-profit organization, the Abbey Fund. Nicole is a top 20 under 40 award recipient, award-winning fashion designer, published author, and real-life fairy godmother. That's an amazing thing to be able to add into a bio there. I like that. So one of the things that you have under your business with Evelyn, Canadian-made clothing line that keeps your money in your own community. So that's part of that story and that business. And I'm not going to talk too much about the Abbey Fund because I want you to talk about it because it's a wonderful story. Shep Eiselstein, owner of Gun Sale Artisan Cheese, and I really love on your website how much detail there is around the story of how you got started. And so we don't actually have it on our slide. We have just the Leap Talks logo. But today's theme is storytelling. So looking at how these entrepreneurs have worked in their own personal journey, their own personal story, and how they tell the story of their business. So some of our questions, if you will notice, do sort of follow that theme of storytelling. So I don't want to share too much because I just love how you shared the story on your website. So, and last but not least, Badr Kasim, owner of Lavadora, which started as a school project, which is from one of the classes that some folks are here, the business and entrepreneurship class, and that you'd seen something done in some other countries and decided to bring the idea to London. So I'm really excited to be the moderator. That's the most you'll hear from me. You want to hear from them. So I'm going to get started here. One thing I will mention is that we are going to open up the floor at some point for student questions. So if there is something that you want to ask one of them specifically, or just a question on entrepreneurship in general, please don't forget the question, and I'll run the mic around, and we'll make sure that that they can speak to what you want to know out of today. So what I want to start with is just kind of the general question of what is your tie to Fanshawe College or your tie to the Woodstock area?
So I took the apprenticeship program at Fanshawe, so I was doing evening school here, so I was able to maintain my regular day-to-day life and finish my schooling because I'm a procrastinator extraordinaire. My mom is a stylist, and so I've done my apprenticeship with her forever, and then finishing the schooling was always this like dun dun dun. So Fanshawe allowed me to finish that.
So I took the fashion design program at Fanshawe College in London, and then last year I took the Leap In program, which I'll talk a little bit more about after as well.
So I did not attend Fanshawe, but I live quite literally 10 minutes away from here, and that's where our factory is as well. And I grew up here, so I think maybe like 30 years ago, my dad went to agriculture school at Fanshawe, but that's about it.
And I took the Business Entrepreneurship and Management program here at the Woodstock campus. And after I graduated, I decided to start this business.
You're all being very polite and going in order, but I will tell you, you don't have to go in order. It's also my first time moderating a panel, so I'm not sure how this is all going to go. But feel free to jump in and, it's conversations in entrepreneurship, so we can talk amongst ourselves as well. So with the theme of storytelling, I'm wondering if you can each speak to the story of the start of your business. So we have a little idea of what you do now and where you're at, but how did it all get started?
Maybe I'll jump in just because mix it up. So this is a story that I end up telling a lot of times. So as part of our thing at the cheese factory, we do group tours, so people can come out and do a tour, and then I always end up getting into this. But I grew up on a farm, so once again 10 minutes south of here, and I always wanted to do something on my own. And so after working on the farm for a bunch of years, I went to university in Iowa, of all places. And in Iowa, of all places, one long weekend we were up in Thunder Bay. And in Thunder Bay, there was a couple there that had a small cheese plant. And we went to visit it because we knew their daughters. And they were super kind, showed us all the way around the cheese factory. And I thought, you know what, that's a really neat thing. And if that works up in Thunder Bay, that's got to be able to work in Southern Ontario, where there's a whole lot more people. So I came back from university after 4 years, and I thought, oh, you know, I'm going to get into cheese making, but I really didn't know anything about how cheese was made. So I was on the farm for a couple of years, and I kind of really got tired of waking up early and milking cows morning and night every single day. I was on my own a lot, so I got really lonely and kind of burnt out. So I'm like, you know what, I need to go after this cheese thing. So I went to get experience where I could. I worked in Switzerland for a summer up in the Alps making cheese in a very traditional cheese factory. I worked in upstate for a little while at another cheese plant. Then I worked in BC and Vancouver Island for a year. So with that experience, basically about 2 years of making cheese, I came back to Oxford with my plan of starting up our company. And so it took me about 2 years to kind of get together, building designs, working on the recipes for the actual cheese that we'd be making, getting the financing and the business planning all in place. And so then it would have been in July of 2011, or August of 2011 is when we actually finally started making cheese. And so since then, it's been about 6.5 years, and we've kind of started off real small, making a little bit, really tough at the beginning, but things really started to grow to the point where we did an expansion a couple of years ago, and then now we're kind of growing into our expansion and kind of at a good place right now.
So
awesome.
if you were in the Swiss Alps and in Iowa and in all sorts of different places, why did you decide to come back here and stick it out here?
A bunch of reasons. I'm close to my family, so I wanted to be back close to my family. One of the key marketing pillars of our cheese plant is we use milk from my parents' dairy farm, which is across the field from the factory, so that fits well. Plus, Southern Ontario or Ontario in general, was kind of a bit behind in terms of the market trend. So cheese is becoming very popular again, just like craft beer is becoming super popular or has become super popular again. And so in states like New York, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Quebec, places like that, artisan cheese had really come back, and it hadn't come back yet here. And so it made sense to come back here as well. Plus, you know, in terms of 100-kilometer or 100-mile diet, we're within 100 miles of like 5 million people, including most of the GTA. And so that's a big reason why we came back too.
Perfect. I'm going to put Sky on the spot to follow that, just because I like there was sort of a mix of family ties, so your own relationships, mixed with going to see somebody else's cheese factory and getting the inspiration from that, and then the business side of it, which is there's a lot of people here, so it makes sense to do that. But sort of the family ties / strange,
strange
story beginning.
events.
Yeah.
So I've always done hair with my mom. My mom's a stylist as well. So I've always had a little bit of experience in the industry. And when I graduated school, I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to explore that avenue, because I didn't necessarily want to work with my mom. I wanted to be independent and do my own thing. So I had an in-home for a while, and everything was kind of at a point where really felt like it was falling apart, and I was so stressed out and didn't know what I was going to do. And out of the blue, one of my good friends I hadn't spoken to in about 2 years called me and told me that he had a dream, that he was in New York, and he went into this big fancy salon, and it was mine. So he's like, I just feel like whatever you have going on in your life right now, whatever negative energy you have going on, you should just drop it and go for your dreams. And that really just spoke to me. And then I went on Kijiji and just kind of typed in industrial space, and the first thing that came up was a salon, and I was like, I feel like the universe is trying to tell me something right now. So I decided I was going to go for it, but I didn't necessarily want to just have a salon. I wanted to expand and be able to offer a multi-service salon, because girls have to run from this point to this point to this point to this point to do all their services, and I felt like, why not condense it and we can all share services together. So I asked one of my clients if she wanted to join forces, and now we have She Beauty Bar.
The two remaining, the story of the start, the story of the start of your business.
All right, I'll go next, I guess. So for me, it was about 3 or 4 years ago, where a friend of mine came up to me and told me about something that he had seen overseas, where man started a company where he placed lockers in apartment buildings, and then people would go and take their dirty laundry and put it in these lockers, go on an app and let them know that they've put their laundry in there. Then the cleaners would come, take the clothes, clean them, and bring them back. Forward to about a year and a half, I started school here in the Business Entrepreneurship and Management program, and we were asked to create an idea for a business. So I thought about that idea. It was a great idea. I went back to my friend, asked him if I could use it, and he said, all right. And ran it through the program, did really well with it in the first year. And after graduating from Fencha, I got a lot of feedback from my teachers and people at the college telling me that I should go with the idea. And so we decided to go with the idea. We adjusted it a little bit just because we didn't have all the capital that we needed to have such an extravagant business. So we decided to change it up a little bit, and instead of placing lockers, we just run it through our website where we actually go to people's homes, pick up the laundry, clean it, and then drop it back off to them. And we just have the people choose the time and date that they want us to be there, as well as the location. And that's about it for me.
I think there's a lot of people that probably want your card after this.
I do.
I already asked for one.
Last but not least.
Okay, so when I was a little girl, around the age of 8, my aunt gave me this designer game with the goal to create an outfit. So you just kind of put a piece of paper over a top and a bottom and color a print or a pattern on it and create an outfit. So I became obsessed with this game and wanted to do something in fashion when I grew up. So I decided to take the fashion design program at Fanshawe, and it was awesome. But when I graduated, I was put in a position where I needed to find a big girl job, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my fashion degree. So I started making myself dresses to wear to interviews, and I would post a picture of the dress I made on Facebook and be like, I just made this dress, wish me luck on my interview. And almost immediately women started inboxing me saying, where can I get that dress? Can you make me a dress? And I started doing custom work for a couple years, and it went really well, and it got to the point where I was so busy that I had to switch over and build a complete inventory and launch an online store. So I no longer do custom work. But with my online clothing line, I also wanted to give back to the community because I'm really big into volunteering and giving back. So at Christmas time, I would offer to give away dresses to women who couldn't afford them or that were going through a hard time. And when I launched a children's line, I wanted to do the same thing but for kids. So I started just saying, like, nominate a kid that's going through a hard time, and I got a lot of responses from people nominating kids that were in the hospital and who were really sick. And I try not to get emotional, but bear with me if I do. Anyway, so I started talking to some of these parents and met with one little girl named Kiana who was battling a kidney disease, and she was waiting a transplant. So I thought it would be kind of cool if she designed the dress and I would bring her drawing to life. So I met with her in the hospital and we designed it, and she had no idea that I was bringing the drawing to life. I kind of just told her, I'm a local fashion designer, I need some help designing a dress. And so she came up with this really cool idea, and I took it home and I brought her drawing to life. And I came back a couple days to the hospital and I presented it to her, and in that moment I knew I wanted to do this for as many kids as I could. So I went home, opened this little jar, and I called it the Abby Girl Fund. And I just asked friends and family to submit money to the jar so that it can help cover some expenses for the fabrics and materials, because I was a startup and couldn't afford to do this many dresses by myself. A couple years later, I partnered with Make-A-Wish Southwestern Ontario. We changed the name to the Abby Fund because we now offer this to boys as well, so they can create a superhero cape, or girls can do that as well. And we're in the process of registering as a not-for-profit.
That's amazing.
That's why you have fairy godmother in your. What I love about all of those stories, though, is that there's like an integration of a couple different factors of why, like in the starting of those businesses, whether it's family, whether it's a school project, whether it's other ideas, or one of the questions I had for you actually when you said, did you go into the business and entrepreneurship class because of the idea that your friend had showed you that app before, or was that already the path that you were headed on?
Not exactly, no. I've had a lot of jobs throughout my life. most of which were very low paying and a lot of work. And at one point, I just decided that I no longer want to work for anybody, and I kind of wanted to be my own boss and maybe provide people with jobs that will offer them a little bit more than what I was offered.
So I want to just jump off. So you were sort of talking about the story of the start of your business, and some of you were telling the story of how that's continued on for you. With the theme of storytelling, I'm always interested in terms of how that story, and actually Shep, you were talking about how you actually tell that story on the tours that you do. But how important is the full story that you just said, or aspects of the story to your business's marketing or your branding or your interaction with clients? Like, are these, so for Sky, do you tell the story of that dream to everyone, or did we just get to hear it today?
I tell some people that portion of the story, but I feel like the more important part of it is that I was really at a point where I felt like everything was really falling apart, and I feel like sometimes people have this idea that success is like a straight rocket ship up, and it's not. It looks a lot like this. You're going to run into a lot of obstacles, but as long as you remain true to what you want to do, you're going to get there.
The final question is, what sort of inspirational message do you have? So you just jumped right to the end. But so even if you don't necessarily share the dream story to everyone, what aspects of it, like, do you share the fact that you had worked with your mom before, or like, does any of that go into your marketing or your branding or how you are trying to reach clients if you're sharing?
I feel like to an extent it does. I'm not like a huge fan of talking about myself, to be perfectly
Welcome
honest.
to Leap Talks.
Yeah, I was a
to
little
do
nervous to do this today because I'm not a huge fan of talking about myself. But sometimes I share all that because I feel like it's important for people to understand as well, especially because my business is fresh and new. I like people to understand that I do have experience. So I do share with the fact that my mom's a stylist, so I have been in the industry much longer than I've been open. So.
And do you find that people have any connections with that sort of family? You know, if family is really important to me, and I see that you're doing what you love, and you have that ties to your family, do you see that you have any clients that actually speak to that
Yeah,
matters
absolutely.
to them?
Absolutely. I definitely think that no matter what story you share with people, there's always going to be some sort of aspect that someone can relate in some sort of way, you know? And I don't know, I love that my mom's a stylist. Like, even the other day, I had to call her quickly because I was doing a color correction, and like, Mom, what would you do in this situation? So it's really nice to have that backup and like let people know that just because you see this lovely picture doesn't mean that that's everything that's going on behind the scenes.
Did you want to mention, because I know you said about the story, you do that with the tours, and I know from your website, I loved reading through all of it, and it really was like a story. You sort of talked about the family farm and your grandfather living in the area and that sort of thing. So is that a big aspect of your business?
Yeah, it's been really big. Like, basically, right from the start, we kind of tried to push ourselves out there and tell our story to as many people as possible, because we're selling something at retail, so like the more recognition we have, the better. And then if you look at how we even branded, so our cheeses have different names based on different stories that are important. So for example, our most popular cheese, called Five Brothers, I'm one of five brothers, ties to the family farm. My brothers have nothing to do with the business. They do their own things, which is good because we can't work together. But another cheese is called Oxford's Harvest, so Oxford County. Another one's called Handeck. Handeck is the name of this tiny little place in Switzerland where I worked for that summer. So those came from stories that were really important. And then I think because of that, and just because we really tried to get it out there as much as possible, now it's come to the point where like we find a lot of people come to us and like their friends are visiting from somewhere, and so they want to bring their friends to see their cheese factory. So people have kind of taken ownership of it, which is amazing. That like they feel kind of proud that this is in the area, and that's worked out really, really well for us.
That's awesome. I love that idea of like naming cheeses after. That's really fantastic.
I was too late. I was 2 years behind the ball, so they used to be called like hard and semi-hard and soft, and people got all kinds of wrong ideas about those kind of things. And so it took me 2 years, but finally we got there.
That's really cool, though, and I think that's a really neat idea in terms of, regardless of what the business is, of trying to integrate some of your own story or your. So do you find that people actually pick it up and are like, Five Brothers cheese? Why is this called Five Brothers?
Yeah.
Do they
All
ask
the
you
time.
about it?
Yeah. And then it also helps if I can say that one is me.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And I think, so I don't know if Bader, if you want to jump in on there in terms of, do you tell any of the story of, your friend introducing that to you or seeing it happen somewhere else and wanting to bring it here, or?
Sometimes, again, just like Sky, I don't really love talking about myself too much. So
Pick great people for this panel.
But often people will ask, and if they do ask, I do tell the story, but I wouldn't go out of my way to do.
Right. And I think we were chatting a little bit, Nicole, around sometimes with businesses, it's not only the stories of yourself and you starting the business, but it could actually be the story of people that you work with or clients, or maybe it's mentors. I know you were mentioning some of your teachers kind of pushing you to do that. So do you integrate, well, I follow you on Facebook, so I know you do integrate, but how do you work in sort of client stories, and I guess Sky, maybe you do that as well, but how do you integrate client stories or people that you work with, and how does that help grow your own brand?
I think storytelling is really important, especially for what I do, because it's so important what I do with the Abbey Fund kids. And on social media, I won't constantly be sharing stuff for sales or like to make money off things. I'm sharing the kids' stories or like what they're going through and their designs, and kind of supporting them that way, and just making awareness even about like what they're going through. And I'm a firm believer in making an income and making an income while making an impact, and I believe I'm truly doing that with the Abbey Fund. And I think storytelling is a huge part of that, because I want my customers that buy my dresses wear them proudly because they're supporting kids in the hospital while doing it.
Do you want to tell them the Katy Perry story?
Yes. So just recently we made a dress for a little girl who is battling leukemia, and she was a Make-A-Wish recipient, and her dream dress was to have something inspired by Katy Perry. So I came up with a firework-inspired dress that just had fireworks all over it, and her wish was to actually meet Katy Perry, and on the weekend she got her wish granted, and she was flown out to one of her concerts and wore her dress that I made her with Katy Perry, and they have a picture together, which is so cool. That's something I made is in the same picture with Katy Perry.
That's cool.
That's awesome. I think I'm going to shift gears a little bit. So we were talking about storytelling, but I think that one of the things that people, I know that I thought of this before I started my own business, or even once I was working it for myself. You think entrepreneur, and a lot of people think that it just means that you do everything on your own, and that it's just you. You're the heart behind the business, and you're doing a lot of the work yourself. And that entrepreneurs really have to have that individual quality. And some of you already mentioned it in terms of, I wanted to do something on my own. I wanted to be independent. But really, for successful entrepreneurs and successful businesses, that it takes a big team, and it takes a lot of people to make those businesses and those dreams come true. So I'm wondering if each of you would be able to name one person or one experience that really changed your personal/business path, and how they did that.
Me personally, I am not amazing with social media. Again, I don't love to talk about myself or like boost myself like that, and it makes me a little uncomfortable. So my business partner is amazing at that. She is our social media guru. She's on top of everything, and she's really helped boost our clientele through that, and which is an area that I would not have excelled in. So I think it's important to always, I had a hard time learning how to accept help or ask for help when in an area of weakness, and I think that's a huge thing with being an entrepreneur, is you absolutely utilize any resource that anybody's willing to offer you, and any hand that's willing to help. It's not a bad thing.
I would say, honestly, this is going to sound biased sitting here, but Leap Junction helped so much this past year. I met with them almost a year ago now, and before then I had taken a bunch of seminars and workshops and stuff, and felt like I really never learned anything about my business or how to apply those tools to my business. But working with Leap Junction I've learned more working with them in the past year than I have like the 4 years that I've been in business. And that's been super supportive. She was very intimidating when I first met her, though. You were. Literally went through like my business, and she was like, "Okay, you made this much money last year." She's like, "How are you living?" She's like, "What are we gonna do? We need to do this, 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 and this." And like, it worked. So thank you. Also, Alex has been a huge help, both with my clothing line as well as my soon-to-be not-for-profit. She's actually going to be one of my board members. So.
For me, I would say absolutely. You cannot do anything alone. And for me, had it not been for my teachers that kind of pushed me towards taking that idea and making it a reality, I think I honestly would not have. Simply for the reason that I didn't know much about laundry, and it was a lot of things that you got to learn. So they kind of helped me with that, gave me ideas of ways that I can put that to the side so that I didn't need to know everything, and I just had to know a few things, and then kind of find other people who know what I'm missing. And so yeah, absolutely, you need people.
Yeah, and for me, just in terms of people, my partner in life and in the business, Colleen, she is, like, we're opposites attract. Like, that's us to 100%. Like, we are way different from each other. But it works really well in the business because I'm an introvert. I like to be on my own and work on my own, but she's definitely not that way. She never wants to be on her own. And so anything that you see out there, like anything on our website, on our social media, that's all her. And she does a fabulous job at all of that. Now, she's a full-time teacher as well, so this is kind of a part-time thing for her. But it's really helped that she's been able to bring that kind of flair to the business where I'm kind of sometimes a bit boring and focus more just on operational things. And so it's a good fit.
I just wanted, this is not one of the questions I told you I was going to ask, but I was
You can't
just
ask it then.
thinking about it. I just think that it was really interesting what you said, Bader, around not, or sort of like thinking that you had to know everything before you got started. And I think that's one of the things that definitely I have thought of, and I've talked to other people where it's sort of like, well, I'm not going to launch, or I'm not going to let people know that I'm working on this until I really know what I'm doing. But that's not really the reality of actually the story of how things happen. Most of the time then you're sort of figuring it out as you go. And I know that one of the people who was a mentor to me when I was starting my own business, his advice to me was, if someone emails you and says, can you do this? You say yes, and then you figure out how to do it afterwards. So you never really, you're sort of always one step ahead of, you're marketing things kind of one step ahead of where you might feel like you actually are. So I don't know if any of you want to, again, I didn't tell you I was going to ask that question, but I just really like that in terms of, sometimes you just have to jump in and not have it all figured out as you go. So I don't know if you want to say more about that.
Yeah, actually, I can tell you one story of, I think it was probably our third customer, and they emailed me and said that there was kind of a bed bug infection in the building, and they needed everything that they owned to be cleaned. We've never done bed bugs. We had no idea how to clean bed bugs or anything like that, and they asked us if we could. And I've heard that same advice as you have before, so I said absolutely. And I took it, figured out how to do it, talked to different people who knew how to do it, who have done it in the past, and we got that done. And they've been our customers since then. So yeah.
Any other examples of that sort of thing?
I feel like I've learned crazy amounts since I started. But at the very, very beginning, I was a bit over-ambitious. I was like, okay, I'm going to start a cheese factory. And I literally put a foundation in the ground. And then I was like, oh, I don't know anything about how cheese is made. I stopped, and I'm like, I need to learn how to make cheese, otherwise I can't even do this. So that's when I went to Switzerland, and that's when I went to all these other places to learn. Came back and like, oh, that was dumb. Now I had to take it all out and put in a new foundation.
All right. I think I'm going to shift gears again. I think that some of you have already touched on this already. But what is one setback or failure that you had in either starting the business, launching it, growing it, something that people might look at or you might think of and say, oh, this was a failure, but how did it actually help you to improve what you do now?
I personally, so I had gone through the small business program and tried to get a grant to start my in-home business, and I moved into this house that was supposed to be a rent-to-own situation, and I renovated the entire basement of the house to make it a salon. I put a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of heartache into this house, and then I kind of got swindled there. So it felt like everything was falling apart because all of this money that I had received was gone, and I had already invested it all, and I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I had like maybe $2,000 left out of the whole thing, and was like, after I got that phone call from my friend, I was like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make it happen. And my business advisor actually told me, like, I think you should hold off. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to. I'm like, I want this now, and I'm going to make it happen, or I'm not going to do it. So I just figured out resources to make it happen. I contacted one of my clients who offered lashes and microblading and asked her if she wanted to join forces and be a super beauty team, and we're doing it.
Well, I can say one thing about, for me, it was more of a marketing thing where I had no idea how to do any marketing. So ended up spending a whole lot of money on our marketing, whether it was flyers or online marketing, social media, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of knowledge that you would need to know before you're able to do anything like that with good results. So we ended up putting a lot of money into that, and I was kind of in charge of that, but I didn't really know what I was doing too much. So ended up, I wouldn't say wasting, but spending a lot of money that didn't get us as much results as we were hoping it would. And since then, we've learned to kind of don't play in a field that you don't know too much about. Find somebody who does, and get them to help you with it.
That's good advice.
So for me, when I first started my business, I had zero business background at all. And I had $100 in my pocket. So you can imagine how difficult it was starting a business with $100 and no business background. So I wouldn't say it was a failure, but I lived dress to dress for a really long time. I struggled a lot in the beginning, but I was so passionate about what I was doing and what I wanted to do that I just kept going. And 4.5 years later, a success story. So it was tough though, for sure.
Yeah, we had it at our biggest, I guess, mistake at the beginning was off the bat, it was like, with cheese, it's got to age. So you can't sell, a young cheese doesn't taste like a whole lot. The older it gets, the more flavorful it gets. So it's like, we got to make lots of cheese at the beginning, and which is what we did. Made cheese, made cheese, made cheese. Thought I could get everything kind of figured out. And then a lot of things started to happen to the cheese. So there's a certain type of bacteria that comes from the milk, survives pasteurization. Anyways, it starts to create holes in your cheese, like not normal kind of holes, like big holes. Looks like a sponge instead of a cheese. And I thought I had stuff in place to prevent that, but I didn't. I didn't have enough. And we lost so many wheels of cheese because of that. Lots of stuff we had to give away, stuff we couldn't even give away, stuff we had to throw away. And that was a huge hit at the beginning when, like you said, you don't have any money at the beginning. You can't afford to make mistakes like that, but we did. And so from that, well, first of all, I learned how to save money real bad. But we also, I guess I learned to tame it down a bit. Like, I need to make sure that this is going to work before I go too far with it.
Just to add to that, I definitely think that it's important to set yourself realistic goals, because I had this vision of I have to be here now, and it doesn't happen like that. You have to get there.
Do any of you actually tell any of those stories openly? Not, I mean, you are right now to all of these folks, but do any of you? Because I think one of the things that I've been thinking about when I do workshops on storytelling is that sometimes businesses do integrate those stories of quote unquote failure, or a time when they made a mistake, or they went after something that wasn't the right idea. So do any of you, just out of curiosity, actually integrate any of those stories in?
I feel like I have a lot of personal conversations with my clients. That's the biggest part of my job, really, is offering beauty services is one thing, but you're offering a personal relationship, and you're offering people a safe haven, somewhere to come back. So
Therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
My hairdresser
Therapy, right?
definitely. I use my hairdresser for that, for sure.
Right? So if I ever have a client who's going through a rough time or is trying to aspire to do something bigger, I do share that kind of story to remind them that not everything is an overnight success, that you do have to put in work, and don't get discouraged, because things are always going to happen to you. And I read this quote one time that it's life is 10% about what happens to you and 90% about how you handle it. And I think that's so true. Yeah.
For us, we have a blog where we kind of post little stories and stuff like that about success and failure, and how to not only look good but feel like a success, because a big part of being successful, in our opinion, is dressing the part. And so if you dress like you're a success, you'll feel like a success. And so we tell a lot of those stories on our blogs.
Okay, I'm gonna switch things up. The next one that I was gonna ask, I think some of you have already talked about, so I'm gonna bring that one in again at the end. What are 2 things that you wish you knew when you were roughly student age? It could be business related. It could be personal related. We could give them just some general life advice if you want. But what are 2 things that you wish you knew at that stage of your life that you've learned since then?
Budgeting. Huge thing, budgeting and actually managing your money and not just being like, I'm excited about this, I'm going to go for it. Sometimes you really have to think those things through because otherwise you can find yourself with not a whole lot. And a secondary one is honestly like believing in yourself. I struggled immensely with actually believing that I was capable of doing like this huge thing. And once you genuinely find that passion and you believe in yourself, you are genuinely capable of anything.
I wish I knew how to cook when I was a student because when I moved away from home, I starved. But
Unrelated to the fashion business?
unrelated completely.
You guys
I
are
think
still
that's
thinking?
about it.
I am still thinking,
that was
yeah.
good.
I kind of, I'm not 100% set on it, but I kind of wish I knew the direction that, like I didn't, in school I didn't know where I was going to go. I was doing a business program just because it was super general, and it was at a liberal arts school, so you take a lot of whatever, which I loved, and I still do love that. But I kind of wish I took more science now because I feel like I could use some better background in chemistry and biology, specifically related to food. But I don't feel like going back to school now.
Yeah, just to add on that, I would definitely agree with him on doing what you love. I actually was a French student for a while because I started with I can't even remember now. I think I took electrical engineering or whatever it's called at Fanshawe. Halfway through, I decided that I didn't want to do that, so I dropped out. And then I went into computer programming, did that halfway through, dropped out again. And then I decided that I was wasting too much money that I didn't have. So I took a couple years off, kind of figured what I actually wanted to do. And that's when I came back to the business program.
All right. I think that's a good, actually, I'm glad I switched those now because it's kind of a good segue into that. So I don't know if you folks are familiar with Simon Sinek or not, but he has a quote that says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think that for myself as an entrepreneur and with a lot of the people that I talk to, that sometimes it doesn't matter what the business is. It doesn't matter if you're providing laundry service or making clothes or cutting hair or selling cheese, that people will actually support you and buy into what you do because of why you do it. And some of that, and all of you have already spoken to this already, but that passion or that story or that thing that comes through, but it's more about the why than it is about the what. So do you have, how true do you think that is? And a lot of you have already said it, but what is at the heart of why you do what you do?
I think it's important with my clothing line. It's completely made in London. It's completely Canadian made. All my fabrics are from Canada. I think it's important to support our own community, and whether that be jobs or anything, I think that's really, really important to keep my business and everything that has to do with it in Canada. And then also with the Abbey Fund, I think it's important to give back to your community. And I heard this quote one time that was something like, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's what you do with it once you made it.
I think it's important for sure because my biggest thing is I love to empower women and make people feel good. Like that's the biggest reason why I do. For me personally, it's extremely rewarding for me to be able to have that, and the money is a bonus because I really love being able to improve the integrity of someone's day. It is why I do what I do, because I actually tried to go through school. I did go through school, a registered physiotherapy assistant, and when I got into that field, it was because I wanted to help people and make people feel better. And I found I wasn't able to express myself the way I am with hair because you're kind of stuck in a box. The way you had to greet people, the way you had to address people, I wasn't allowed to be overly personal with people, and that's not something I'm capable of. So doing hair has really allowed me to do that, and I feel like that's why my clients come back, is because we all have that very personal bond.
I think that's a really interesting thing you were saying, that you're sort of in one program, but it wasn't really about the program. At the heart of why you were in it was because you wanted to help people. And I think that's an interesting insight in terms of kind of looking at yourself and saying, you know, why am I in this program? So I know my background is in teaching, and I think that what was always important to me was interacting with youth and having that impact. And I do that through my business now, even though I'm not a full-time teacher. But I think that that can be a really interesting insight to kind of ask yourself, regardless of what program you're in, you know, why am I in that program? And that can maybe even speak to what your why is, right? And that you can sort of see that maybe there's another program or another line of work that actually might suit a little bit better.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
I kind of, along the same lines, like for myself, like just personally, I have a really hard time with conflict. Like I have a hard time dealing with conflict with people and with stuff like that. And so if I went into an occupation like a mechanic, like you're dealing with people that aren't too happy, their car's busted, and nobody's happy when your car's busted. But the beauty about cheese is that, first of all, people love food, and they're always kind of like, it can be something that's comforting. But at the same time, especially with specialty cheese, like people are buying it thinking about the friends that they're going to have over this weekend, or the people that they're going to give it to. So it's just kind of a feel-good kind of thing, and that fits really well with who I am as a person. And it's also just great to hear like about what people do and where they serve the cheese, and you know what kind of happens, and that kind of really makes it special for us.
Which links back into the storytelling part, right? So they're telling you those stories from your business. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I'm honestly not too crazy about doing laundry. I don't think anybody really is. But one thing that I do like and enjoy doing is helping people and kind of motivating them to do whatever they want to do. And so a few things that we've done through our business was the blog that I was talking about, where we tell people stories, give them advice, help them with that kind of stuff, as well as an initiative that we started not too long ago called the Lava Care Initiative, where we ask people to donate any unwanted clothes that they have, and we go out in the streets and find people who do need those clothes and kind of help them with it. We help them dress up and kind of get motivated to start a new life, right, or whatever else we need.
I think that's really interesting what you just said. You're like, I'm not crazy about doing laundry, and your whole business is about doing laundry. So that's, but at the same time, it's exactly what that quote is all about, that sometimes it's not about what you do, and that opportunity came to you, so you went with it, but that it's really about the why. And if you are in a business, there are always, as an entrepreneur, there's always going to be parts that you don't love, even about the business that you run, but that if that why is there for you, then that can really carry you forward. All right, I'm going to ask a few more questions, and then I'm going to open it up to any student questions. I would love if you helped us, carry on with some of the answers. Some of the questions. You folks have done an amazing job of giving some advice and telling some of the stories. But if you are here, especially those people who are part of the business and entrepreneurship class, or if you're in the hairstyling program or something that's related, these are really good people to ask a question. And I'm going to sound really teachery right now, but there are no silly questions. So if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it. And hopefully one of these people can give you some advice. So I am going to ask you, actually, this is just total curiosity. Can each of you say where the name of your business came from? It's from you, because I was like, I have no idea what Lavadora means.
So for me, it was, I love being creative. I love kind of being different. And so when it came to, I was in school and they asked us to create a business name. So I kind of started doing some research. I noticed a lot of the laundry places have the same typical name, where it's this cleaners or that laundry or whatever else. So I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I researched how you could, what laundry means in different languages. So I found out that the washing machine is lava care in Spanish. So I kind of adopted that name, and that's where it's from.
So for us, it was more, a lot of cheese has to do with locations. So you can buy Gouda. Gouda is a Dutch place, or Gruyere is an area in Switzerland. So ours, Guns Hill Artisan Cheese. Guns Hill is the road that we live on, and it's called Guns Hill because it was settled by John Gunn, who was from Scotland way back in the day, and it's the highest point in Oxford County.
You have such cool, and I'm glad you lived on a street that's so Guns Hill Artisan Cheese. It wouldn't be quite the same if you lived on a street that was...
it doesn't help always, though, because there's huge potholes in it all the time.
So Evelyn came from my grandmother. She is 79 years old and still models for me, and she's one of my best friends. She was a big inspiration into me following my dreams. And then the Abbey Fund comes from my grandfather, Albert.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Love it. Our name comes from, so actually, we had initially tried to name ourselves The Beauty Bar and then found out there was another location in London already called that.
Oh, no.
And we actually did a live video announcing the name and then found out. My friend inboxed me and was like, girl, there's already a salon named that. We were like, oh, take the video down. So we were on a road trip. We were actually looking for, we were going on a big makeup shopping spree. And we were on our way back and we were trying to brainstorm and talk about names. And we really wanted something that reflected what we were going to do, with who we were going to do it. We wanted people to understand that, like, we're here to empower women, and we wanted a strong name that spoke to us. So she kind of just happened. Jessica spit it out at me, and I was like, that's it.
All right. Okay, I think I'm just going to ask my last one here, which again you have already spoken to a few times. But if you could give one piece of advice specifically to someone who is thinking of starting their own business or exploring entrepreneurship at some point in time in their life, what would that one piece of advice be? Besides learn how to cook, that doesn't something else.
So my business tagline or motto is dream, believe, inspire. So dream big, believe in yourself, and inspire others because you're worth it. So go for it if you truly believe in yourself and what you're doing.
Love that. Can you repeat the question for me?
Yes. This didn't happen the whole time, so that's if you could give only one piece of advice to someone who is thinking of starting their own business, what would it be?
Don't give up. If you are really passionate about it, just dig deep in yourself and find that belief in yourself that you can make it happen. Because honestly, I truly believe that if you have that passion behind yourself and you believe in yourself, no one else can do that for you. So if you believe in yourself and you just keep pushing through whatever obstacles life throws at you, you're going to get there.
Maybe to tie in with that, and you'll probably hear it from lots of places, but like believe in what you do, but also like be ready to work at it, because you're gonna have to work at it, and it's not gonna be fun a lot of times. But it's about risk and reward, and like you really put it in, like it's definitely rewarding in the end.
Absolutely.
For me, I would say just do it, just like Nike. Honestly, it's just take the first step. It's always a lot harder when you're just thinking about it and not doing much. And once you take the first step, it becomes a lot easier, and then you take the second step and third step. Just take it one step at a time, and just don't overthink it. Don't scare yourself, because it's not as scary as you think.
Absolutely. Never take your foot off the gas.
Oh, I like the metaphors flying around here. Okay, so I'm going to run the microphone around, and does anybody have any questions?
I'm just wondering if you've ever thought about selling wine with your cheese.
Ah, yeah. We get asked that one all the time. And in Ontario, the liquor laws just won't allow for that. I would, maybe just to add to that, I've always had a dream of another business, which would be starting my own brewery, which I was actually like seriously considering doing. And then some other guys opened one up in Woodstock. I'm like, they beat me to it.
We might have asked them to be on the panel, so that's really. I'm glad that we didn't have you sitting beside each other. Any other questions for our entrepreneurs?
So this just kind of applies to all of you, but what are some barriers that you run into as business owners in the actual running of your business now that you've started up?
Financing.
Yes.
It's always a big one. For us, financing getting started was a huge one because you can't make cheese in your house. Like, you have to have a licensed facility, so it's got to have all the bells and whistles that a licensed facility has to have. So it was a big hurdle. Now, I'm super fortunate to be in a position where I could borrow money from my parents. And then we also took a big advantage of the Oxford Small Business Support Center, which had 2 loans at that particular time, and so we borrowed a whole lot of money from them too, which made the difference for us.
I'm like a goldfish, 3-second memory. I already forget what your question is.
Sorry, I asked what kind of barriers do you run into as a business owner now that you've already started up?
There's going to be tons, and like you're always going to doubt yourself, but financing absolutely is a massive one. And don't listen to the naysayers. It's like my biggest thing. Like put on your blinders, and you're like, this is where I'm going.
I would say just life happens. There's always things happening around you, things that kind of slow you down, that might distract you from what you're doing, and you just gotta power through it. You just gotta keep going every single day.
For me, I might be a little personal sharing this, but I have my own illnesses to deal with, so it restricts me from being able to do certain things. But on the plus side, it also helps me relate to my Abby Fund recipients so much, so I feel like that's what's keeping me going. So, I mean, it has its downfalls, obviously. Like, I'm really grateful to be able to work from home and support myself that way, but reaching a point right now in my business where I need to kind of outsource some of my work, but manufacturing, hiring seamstresses, I have those available to me. So.
Thank you.
Yes.
So Chef talked a little bit about this, but obviously financing is something that every entrepreneur has to go through. So I know it's a little bit personal, but I'm always interested to hear how you got over that hurdle, or what were you able to access that maybe people don't know about, or just what made it work.
For me, it was the Small Business Center, because I definitely struggled with asking for help in general. And then I found the Small Business Center, and I found out there was all these resources I had no idea about, and it helped immensely. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have been able to do any of it.
I benefited from the Small Business Center as well with the starter company grant, and then also taking the Leap In Accelerator that also came with the support financially as well.
For me, I would just say I kind of changed the business model, figured out a way to do it at a lower cost so that we have less overhead and that kind of stuff, and just started from there and worked our way up.
I think that's a great point too. Like, looking back, and like this is what I tell other people that are looking at getting in the cheese business. Like, see if you can find someone else to make it for you at first, because that's way cheaper than trying to do your own. And then eventually you might get to the point where you can actually build your own facility or move into your own place or whatever.
So this is for Sky specifically. In the hair world, where you need to know a lot of troubleshooting because there's so many variables, how do you overcome those kinds of obstacles at the beginning of your career versus now?
Just absolutely, my biggest thing is educate yourself constantly. Our business is always changing. There's always new trends coming in. Just always try to stay on top of it. Something as simple as like keeping up on YouTube videos, finding a celebrity stylist you like, follow their page. I have a lot of different stylists that I follow to keep up on trends and always find what's new. Plus, I have my mom on speed dial.
Do you have any advice for me as a rookie?
Absolutely. Just honestly, just stay focused and stay true to what you want to do. Find a niche, because I feel like there's so many people that are offering beauty services. So really find a niche that's you, that's personal, because that is what your clients are going to come for, is that personal bond that you're going to have with them and what they relate to with you. Good luck.
Yes. You're making me get my workout, as my Fitbit will be very happy, so let's keep doing that.
For the laundry business being predominantly e-commerce, did you ever find that gave you a barrier to, like, say, older target market or anything like that?
Yes, definitely actually, because at first all our marketing was done on social media and online and that kind of stuff. Eventually we realized that not everybody is on social media, so we had to print flyers and stuff like that, and we started going to, for us, a big one now is independent living homes. So that's where people, when they get older, they can go live there independently, but they don't get their laundry done for them. So we have to go there, hand out flyers, talk to people, that kind of stuff, and that's how we get their services. As well as we actually got a phone number we didn't have before, so that's something we learned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a great question, and actually made me think of a question. How much, if you're thinking like percentage-wise of your business, actually comes from word of mouth versus other marketing?
For me, I would say, like, initially, I had a full clientele when we started, And now my clientele is getting overwhelming. So for me, it's still probably around 80% word of mouth, because people can see your pictures on social media all day, but until they've gotten a personal reference from someone, people don't really care. Because there's a million people posting awesome hair pictures and stuff like that all over social media. So genuinely, word of mouth is everything. And my mom's salon, she's never advertised ever. And my mom is always busy.
I heard somewhere that Sriracha doesn't advertise everything. Is anyway, another a tangent there. But that you raise a good point that sometimes you don't necessarily, if that word of mouth is how, and you're telling that story and people are referring, that maybe you don't need social media accounts, you don't need posters, flyers, that kind of thing. What about for the rest of you in terms of a percentage of, I mean, rough, but how much do you think actually comes from word of mouth versus your other
It's hard
marketing?
to know exactly, but ours is really big as well. Like, it's so if somebody gets it, they try it, and they're like, oh, tells their friends, or they bring it to their friends, you got to try this too. So one of our, is more traditional, but at the beginning, one of our main ways of marketing was what we just called like word of mouth on overdrive. Like, so we tried to go everywhere. So I tried to speak at any kind of engagement I could get to. We went to all these food and wine shows where instead of meeting a couple people a day, you'd meet thousands of people a day. And then we just tried to talk, and hand out the product as much as we could to as many people. And I think that really paid off, because then lots of those people went to, say, Loblaws and said, oh, you guys, do you have Five Brothers cheese? Oh, no, we don't. And a lot of stores, even Loblaws, are good at saying, oh, our customers are asking for this, now we'll bring it in. And that was a much better way to get our product out there than the other way around by saying, okay, here's our cheese, Loblaws, go and sell it. Because when we had talked to someone and they talked to them, it actually made it happen.
For us, I would say it's also about 70%, especially in the beginning where we kind of didn't know what we were doing with the social media. And so word of mouth ended up being how we brought in people. So yeah, I would say about 70%.
So one of my garment lines that I launched last summer is a bridal robe line. So what women would purchase for their wedding day to wear a robe for pictures while they're getting ready, or to gift to their bridesmaids. And so I made 8 of them for one of my good friends that was getting married. And then she told her friends, and their friends told their friends. And I never once advertised it, and still have not advertised it. And I've made over 400 of them within a year. So 100% word of mouth.
That's awesome. I think it also makes me think that sometimes, whether it's entrepreneurship or whether it's just, a passion that you have for something else, I feel like, and one of the things that I had to learn as an entrepreneur as well is that it can be really scary to throw an idea or throw a passion that you have out to people and sort of get people talking about it before you really feel secure in what you're doing. But the interesting thing is that the more you share that idea, and I talk about this in workshops even with high school students, is that the more you actually talk about what you want to do, the more people know about it, the more people want to support you. And it's kind of an interesting, with entrepreneurship or even just our own personal passions and things, sometimes if we're not 100% sure about it, we don't want to talk about it until it's perfect or until it's ready. So I do realize that there is now pizza, so the questions are probably going to dwindle. But does anybody else have a couple questions?
So you touched on this slightly, and I do want to talk about perhaps alternate revenue streams. So you talked about in the cheese building that maybe you should have had somebody else make it first. So are you now thinking about making cheese for other people?
We started doing that almost right away.
Okay.
Because once again, you have a huge capital investment, and you have to spread that capital investment over as many pieces of cheese possible. And at the beginning, when our markets weren't built up yet, we needed to put more cheese through that, or make more cheese. So we took on a few people. Now I kind of wish I wasn't doing that because it's extra busy, but we've started to change our pricing structure around a bit so it still makes it worth it to do it.
Right.
And then we still have those same few clients.
And I think that happened with your beauty bar, or she bar, because you decided to have other services, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was at a point where it wasn't going to happen if I tried to do it by myself at this point. I had kind of exercised all my resources at that point and didn't know what to do. And again, I turned to my client who I knew we had a similar mindset. I knew we had a similar skill set. We were in the same kind of industry. And we've just exploded together because she complements me in the areas I'm not strong at and vice versa.
And I think, Nicole, you talked a little bit about it with your robes, but kind of looking at an alternate revenue stream
Yeah.
so that it can support all the things you want to do.
Yes, because I'm not passionate about making bridal robes. It's very repetitive. So being able to outsource that is something I'm looking at right now, so then I can continue doing what I am passionate about.
And then I wanted Holly just to share a little bit of her story. She's been an amazing facilitator, I think, today, and her passion is around storytelling. So if you could just take a few minutes, I'll give you more than 20 words to tell everybody why this is so special to your heart.
You put me on the spot there. So if anyone has heard of the term slam poetry before, that's what I do. So it started off as a passion, a hobby, and actually it started off as something I was terrified of, and then a hobby, and then I grew a business out of it. So like I mentioned, my background is in teaching, so I knew I always wanted to work with youth, high school in particular, and so I started going into classrooms, teaching students about spoken word poetry, and then doing assemblies, and it kind of grew from there. So as some of them said as well, there are different aspects of a business, and there's the parts that you maybe don't enjoy quite as much that make you a little bit of money. So my heart is always around working with youth. I do work with other organizations and businesses and do things like commission pieces, or I will create something to perform at an event or an AGM. I don't find as much joy in that, but it helps pay the bills. But I think, for me, storytelling is at the root of what I do through poetry, and it has led me to not only hear a lot of people's stories through poetry, but even as an entrepreneur, then to be speaking to other entrepreneurs about what they do and the stories behind those things. So she asked me that question, then she ran away. So did anybody else? We do have some time for one or two more questions if anybody has anything specific. I know you can all smell the pizza, so I'm really sorry about that.
I was just curious how you all stay unique. There's so many different businesses in our area. How are you guys able to stay different from them?
For us, we try to make our main focus, like we have a women's only clientele. We don't work with men because we specifically want to focus on empowering women. So we are actually in the works of putting on workshops and doing like nighttime sort of get-togethers. We're going to do makeup and margaritas kind of things so that we can have women. We just want to empower everybody. So as simple as it is, being able to make yourself feel pretty for a girl usually makes you feel good. So we're just trying to make sure that like our biggest message to everybody is like empower women. And I feel like a lot of the focus is always about just being pretty, and ours, we kind of want to reach beyond that.
For us, it's the fact that we pick up and drop off the laundry, as well as the fact that we run it through an online website so that people can conveniently just go on our website, log in, and choose whenever they want the laundry to be picked up and dropped off. And that makes it easy.
And so you're the only one in this area that does that sort of thing?
Yeah, we are.
Awesome.
So my clothing line is a social enterprise, so it literally exists to do something good in the community. So that's the work that I do with the Abbey Fund, and we're also 100% Canadian made and currently handmade. So everything is made by me, so you know that it's coming from right in your own community.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. And for us, it was all like right from the beginning. It was important to create something unique. Like we didn't want to say, okay, we're making a Gouda or we're making a cheddar. Like we wanted to create our own unique cheese, and so we didn't give it a name that it would, it's like this or it's like that, but it's Five Brothers. Oh, what's Five Brothers? Well, try it. This is what it tastes like, and that's really been our focus. Like, this is a unique cheese. You're not going to get it anywhere else, and plus, it's made right here. Like we only sell in Ontario. It's made in Ontario. Like there's not that many other Ontario-made cheeses, so that's kind of our positioning.
Thank you.
That's a really great question. Any other questions at all for our entrepreneurs? I think the one thing that you just said, especially when people are starting their own business, is that it's almost like you have to clarify it. Like, I do this, and it's kind of like this person who's already successful, but that maybe that's not always the right way to go about it, to sort of say, no, this is what I do, and it's not like anything else because it's just me. So that's an interesting way to think of it. Any other questions at all? We're good? Overwhelmed by the smell of pizza. Okay, so what I'm going to say just before we all jump up, can I get a huge round of applause for our 4 panelists today? They have been really gracious in volunteering their time to do this today. I will encourage you, yes, pizza is very exciting, but these people are going to stick around for a few minutes. So if you do have a question that you didn't want to ask in front of everyone, please do come and ask them. As well, there are tables outside. So there are 3 tables. One is full of flyers and everything around Leap Junction. So you do go to Fanshawe, even though you are at the Woodstock campus, you do still have access to those services at Leap Junction. So you might not be able to drop into our workshops every week, but the summer program that Nicole was speaking of, or pitch competitions, things like that, you can access that. And then we also have our 2 tables with our community resources as well. So Lindsay and the folks from the Small Business Center. So please do go out and talk to them if entrepreneurship is something, especially if you are in that business and entrepreneurship course. Get to know those resources, get to know these people, maybe let them know what you're all about, and do take advantage of that. So that said, we do also have, one more thing. Can I get a round of applause for the tech people who we can't do things without tech? I almost forgot you, but I didn't. Every time I perform, I always feel like I have to say thank you to the people behind the scenes. So thank you guys for coming with us. And as mentioned, Alex and Annette are around as well from Leap Junction, so please do come and chat with us. That's pretty much it. So there is some pizza, there's plates, there's napkins, and feel free. And maybe a round of applause to all of you for coming today. We really appreciate
and for
it. So,
moderator.
yeah. Oh, for a moderator. Okay. Awesome. We are here until 2 o'clock, so grab some pizza, chat with each other as well. That's what the entrepreneurs were saying. You need a system of people, so chat with each other, get to know what everybody's all about.
I don't know how to get it up.